So Kimberly is the green laser woman. And Kimberly is going to talk about how green light laser heals and balances the body's field. Dinesh Gadal developed spectral chrometry in the 1920s using light to heal the body in a gentle yet effective way. The book, Let There Be Light, explains how sessions begin with the spectrochrome laser using the balance aspect of green light to help balance to not only the physical body, but also the body's electromagnetic response to emotional memories. Kimberly is the chief scientist at the Biofield Light Imaging and has developed the green spectrochrome laser, which utilizes coherent green light with a coherent output of a laser in the biofield to help bring balance. We'll be sharing her tools to provide biofield experience with the latest techniques. So thank you for joining us again.
Thanks for having me, Mark. I really appreciate you putting all the hard work that you've done putting this together, and then all the juggling that you've been doing with getting everybody in the right rooms. I'm just blown away. So bravo. You've got a great group of volunteers and helpers who are helping you get organized. So big shout out to them as well.
Yeah.
Just to give everybody a little bit of background, my degree is in biomedical engineering. I have a bachelor's and master's degree and a minor in mathematics. And my first job was overseeing clinical trials at big pharmaceutical companies. So I would listen to all the study drugs, the side effects, how many people died, how many people's faces are twitching and tongues are swelling. And it was all obviously chemistry-based healing or chemistry-based medicine. And I actually had a health incident. I had a couple of seizures and $10,000 worth of tests at the hospital. They couldn't figure out, what was wrong with me. And I tried a combination of acupuncture, homeopathy. I had been on birth control pills for almost 10 years. And the birth control pills, which I find interesting that out of all of the pills that are there, it is considered the pill. It had actually put some deposits into my brain. And so I had to take some drops to clear out my pineal gland. And so between the acupuncture, the homeopathy, and then using green light, I got better. And so the biomedical engineer in me is how did that work? And so back in 2009, I went off on an epic journey. I went to the World Research Foundation in Sedona and met with Steve Ross, who's got ancient scrolls. He has all of Royal Raymond Rife's handwritten notes and his last words. And he just has an incredible library. And when I was there, he told me, your angels told my angels to give you these books. And one of them was Spectrochrometry by Dinshaw Gadiali. The other was Let There Be Light, which was written by his son, Darius Dinshaw. And then also a book written by the head of the Zoroastrian community named Mare Master Moose. It was her dissertation called The Rainbow Colors of Light. And I got those in July, and by January, I was in Mumbai, surrounded by Zoroastrians, and was able to meet with Mare Master Moose, whose paper and dissertation completely blew my mind. But it got me on this journey of studying light and the effects of light. And in his book, he talked about how he would always use green in the first session because green is like an adaptogen. So anything that's overactive, it can help bring it down. If it's underactive, it can help bring it back up. And so red, orange, yellow, those are all very stimulating colors. They use those in a lot of fast food logos, anything like things that are really going to stimulate. Yellow stimulates your digestive system. So those golden arches and things like that. So colors are often used to stimulate a response from the person's body already. But there are certain contraindications for red. So if somebody already has their central nervous system is already overactive and very stressed, you wouldn't want to use a red laser or red light, on their body. And conversely, blue, indigo, violet are very relaxing colors. So those colors would suppress the circulatory system. So if somebody's circulatory system was overactive, then you could use those colors and bring it down. But they're also very depressive colors. So if somebody's already kind of down and out, then you wouldn't necessarily want to use those colors. So there were certain contraindications for some of those, but green, it didn't matter if you were pregnant or anything like that. Green was always safe to use. So that's why I chose green as that balancing color. It's also the heart chakra, which relates to love and gratitude and compassion. And so I started working with green. The lasers weren't declassified until the 1950s and 60s. So Dinshaw, didn't have access to that. What he was using was a full spectrum bulb and then using different color filters in front of it to create the desired effect. So after an hour session with green, if for some reason, for example, their liver still needed to be stimulated, then they would cover the rest of the body and then just focus that red light just right over the liver. Or if it was overactive, then they would put that blue indigo or a violet there over the body. But it was an incredible system and had amazing results. And unfortunately, all of his work was destroyed, which is always kind of makes you wonder what that is all about. But one of the things that he was using green light to do also would be to balance the pituitary gland. And your pituitary gland is your master gland. So that's what, when your body gets an input, that master gland is the one that tells all of the different hormonal systems, how it needs to respond. So that I think is a really important thing to be able to get that master in control, whether it's, overactive or underactive, trying to bring that master back into that balanced kind of neutral state. He also used it to balance the cerebrum. So the cerebrum is all about temperature management, balance, coordination, but also memories. And so this was one that when I first started using green light, my dad had just had an accident. He fell off a ladder several feet and I saw it and it kept replaying every time I closed my eyes. But in my whole system, I could feel my whole system get really charged whenever I would think about it. So I had this green laser and I put it on my chest and I closed my eyes and it automatically replayed. I didn't even try, it just happened. And when I felt it, it just felt like the wave of emotion wasn't as intense. So I played it again, through it again, and it just felt like a little bump. And then I played through it a third time and it felt like that happened. So my system just felt more neutral about that past trauma and I could go to sleep and not have that there replaying in my mind. And so when I first got this laser, a friend of mine, she had cut the tip of her finger off with a rotary saw. And she came in and she's like, Kimberly, every time I close my eyes, I'm cutting my finger off again. So I gave her the laser. She put it to her heart. And in less than a minute, she gave it back to me and she said, okay, I'm good. And what happened is not only did it stop playing the past memory, she had to use the saw again in about 3 or 4 days. And she wasn't afraid to use it again. So also things that if you're not just past, you think about something in the past in your energy field, whether it's that kind of anxiety or, I think back that thing that happened, 10 years ago and it still pisses me off and you've got this kind of charged in your field, or you think about it and it makes you really sad, that can help neutralize it. But also if you think about something, that's going to happen tomorrow or 2 weeks from now, or what's going to happen next year, and you've got this charge to your field, then that can also help neutralize those kind of future fears as well. So sometimes what I like to do is we'll lay down and just have the laser just shining, propped up on a pillow over the top of my head. So it's working on that kind of pituitary area on my brain, and just seeing where my mind goes, see if I go past or future. I'm aware of it, but then also really grateful that can be neutralized so that I can stay more present and in the current timeline. So it's all, people have also been using it for working on scars. So scars, your electricity flowing across your skin like this, But then when you get a scar, this electricity, it's like it hits it like a circuit breaker. So some people have been able to use the laser and shine it over their scars. And typically what I hear is not just like, oh, it feels tingly. What I've most often heard is it feels like lightning bolts going across the scar. And a friend of mine used it on her C-section scar, felt lightning bolts, and then felt a surge of electricity move from her upper half of her body down to the lower half of her body. So she was really able to feel that energy start to move down. And this was, she'd had it, her kid was 40 plus years old at this point. So for 40 years, she didn't have that full electrical activity going, from the top half of her body to a very important area in the lower half of her body. So some people have been able to use the laser that way. How I developed this laser, it uses copper coils in here. So it works, the light travels and passes through these copper coils. And I also have two high powered magnets. So the light's passing through a really high powered magnetic field. And then in the end of the laser, I don't know if you can see it when it's on, there is a vial here that has a particular element. And so lasers act as a carrier wave so that it can, as the laser passes through that element, that's carrying that element there into the body, which that part I am not going to share what that element is. But so lasers acting as a carrier wave, they've been studies where they've taken salamander eggs and they've shown a laser through salamander eggs onto frog eggs, and the frog eggs ended up turning into salamanders 100%. So that DNA, that transmission of the DNA of the salamander was able to be shown onto the frog embryos and transform that into salamander, which I find really fascinating. So lasers as a carrier wave, it's, if you think about a radio station, if it's 92.5, that's the wave that all of the music is being carried on. So not only, I just recently developed a new bit of kit to add on to my laser, so you can put whatever you want to in it. So Quartz is an amplifier. So Quartz amplifies any signals. It also has a very coherent structure. And so I like to put this into my little cup. I like to use raw rubies. Partly because of the geometry. A lot of people are familiar with geometry, but these also have, I don't know if you can see, little pyramids or triangles on top of it. So you get kind of a double geometry using rubies. That's the big version, but I also have a small raw ruby that I like to put in here. And then you can put supplements as well. This is actually a type of olive oil. It's called C60. And this is something that they've been giving to rats, and it's doubled their lifespan, which is quite mind-blowing. So I also like to put that in here. This is kind of expensive. So ingesting it over and over again is going to cost a lot of money, and that's working more in the chemistry. But this, I'm going to use it in the more physics-based treatment application. You can also put amethyst or whatever you'd like. I've got a liposomal vitamin C that I also like to put in there. And you can muscle test to see, does this make my field strong or does it make my field weak? Which this makes my field strong. And so what this does is it attaches through magnets. You can see that one there. So it attaches here onto the end of the laser. And then you can shine that combination of, whatever you want. I wanted to make it, really open source. If people want to put in homeopathics or Bach flower remedies or whatever they want to put in there, they can put in there, whether it's herbals or what. And then you can shine it anywhere really on your body. I like to use it on my heart. That's kind of where it feels drawn to me. Sometimes it works through the clothes as well. Your thymus, your immune system, you can place that there. But I also like to say, just see how the spirit moves you. And so it's been interesting to see, where people feel drawn to put the laser. A friend of mine, his daughter is 18 years old, and she just immediately went to her knees, which I thought was interesting. But at 18, every time she squatted to the ground, her knees would pop. And then after using this laser, she squatted down and her knees didn't pop anymore. So she's pretty blown away with that. But I also have some people who are in their 80s, 90s. I even have a lady who's 101 who have been using it on their arthritis in their hands, and they swear by it. They use it every day because it completely changes their state as well. I have a friend of mine who snuck it into an ICU this last week and started using it on a friend of hers, and he hadn't moved in 4 days. And after using this laser, he rolled over on his right side. And so my friend was there with his wife, and they were both just like, what is this thing and how is it working? But it's all, more physics based. And it's actually quite sad that that she had to sneak it in, and that, the medical model is, they're not as open-minded to this type of thing. But more and more doctors are becoming aware of photobiomodulation. It's pretty standard of care. I know my niece, she was March of Dimes ambassador. She was premature, and she had jaundice, and she was like a little glowworm. So hugging onto her, she had this light that was helping with her bilirubin. And also using UV light to clear water. People are understanding that light has a really high ability to affect change. So it's been a pretty wild ride. I just developed it in January, and just hearing everybody's like, I used it on my poison ivy and it stopped itching and it stopped hurting. Oh, I put it on my warts and the warts shrunk in 3 days and they fell off in a week. I get really dizzy, and so I just shine it on my ear for 10 minutes and the dizziness goes away. So another thing that I like to do is to just, as many of you might know, if you're on this conference, you probably know that the whole body is represented in the hand in reflexology. So there's certain points and certain organs that you can stimulate. So what I like to do is to just shine the laser slowly over my hand, and I see if there's a place where I feel it tingle, which to me is electricity. So sometimes if I find a spot that tingles, then I'll hold it there. And a friend of mine, I let her son, who's, they call me a witch, as a joke, but, they think this is kind of a little bit wooey. But all of a sudden he stops on this spot in his hand and he's like, wow, it's really tingling right here. And so I showed him on the reflexology map, this relates to the stomach. And then they tell me, he says, I haven't had a bowel movement in 3 days. And so I said, okay, well, just hold it there. He said, well, how long? I said, until it stops tingling. In less than 10 minutes, it stopped tingling. And so I was like, well, go ahead and turn the laser off. And the next day I get a full report of his bowel movements and that type of a thing. So I've also had people who had neuropathy in the bottom of their feet, and they think that this is all hooey. And so I'm like, well, let me just give it a try. So I start shining it on the bottoms of their feet, and they're like, wow, that's really warming up. Oh yeah, nope, I can feel that tingling. Oh no, my big toe is like really tingling right now. Okay, can you turn the laser off? And so it went from, this isn't going to do anything to, wow, this laser feels so intense that, we should turn this off. So it's been fun kind of making some believers. But also, I've been doing some work with tuning forks, and when I work with tuning forks, I really resonate with the person, and I feel like I really got to work with the vibration that's coming through my fingers. But when I'm using the laser, the laser is working on them, and my hands aren't interacting, with that laser, or with that laser light, like it was with the sound vibrations traveling through me, and I had to process that energy. So it feels a lot cleaner working with it as well. And a lot of practitioners, people who do, other type of work, there's people who do EFT, like I said, this biofield tuning, whatever it is being able to have something like this to help keep their field neutralized. So I noticed that in the work that I was doing with tuning forks that I could get a lot more done because the work that I was doing kind of triggers some emotions. So if the laser can be there and help neutralize that out, then I can get a lot more work done. So people who are doing, who are psychologists, who are working with traumatic emotions and traumatic events, even if it's not, kind of in their face, I like to suggest putting it, just down at their feet, so that it's not going to be really a distracting thing, but you're really helping to bring all of that electricity that might be in their field when they go back to these traumas, to bring them down to the feet and help that electricity get down and out of the field so that they're not carrying it on. So then if people are neutralized from these past traumas, then the way that they're going to interact with the world is going to be completely different. So they're not going to, if they get triggered by something that's happened to them when they were in the second grade, and now their wife is saying the same thing that their second grade teacher is, if they've been able to clear out that trauma, then they can come from a more neutral space rather than coming from a place of charge. So it's been an incredible journey working with this technology, and I keep hearing more and more people sharing their results. I've also been shining it into a glass of water. So the water that I'm going to drink or the food that I'm going to eat, that's another way that you could use the laser. I've been putting it in my bathtub. So when I fill up, I like to take salt baths because salt baths help to keep your system grounded. We wear a lot of rubber-soled shoes, and we've got more and more interference patterns in the air from, cell phones, Wi-Fi, internet modems, all of those things, that to be able to take a salt bath to help keep my electrical system grounded is really important. So shining this green laser into the bathtub, that's also something that you can do. We had some people who were in a senior facility who started to try this, and they know, how much energy it takes for them to get up to their floor at the housing facility. And they couldn't believe how much more energy that they have since putting it into their bath water. So, and it's actually quite cool. If you turn the lights off and then you shine this and the whole tub turns green, it's actually kind of interesting to see and to experience. We've also done it kind of like a distance session. The person was actually there, but we had them look at an eye chart and they could read line 6 and line 8. And then we took a piece of hair sample, just cut a little piece of their hair, put it in a jar. And then we started to muscle test them with a bidigital O-ring test, and to measure the strength of their field. When we had him think about his mother, his field opened up and it was really weak. So then we had him continue thinking about it and shine the green laser on his hair, not on him. And then we had him think about his whole maternal line. So that whole chain of DNA, and being really broad in that kind of thinking rather than getting stuck on like their mother or the seventh grandmother above, or whatever, just being that whole maternal line off into infinity. I like to be really broad in the thinking. And again, it had broken open. So we had him think about it again, shine the laser, and then it was super solid. And we did the same thing for the other side, dad and the paternal line, and it was weak, and we helped it get strong. But then we had him think about his parents together. So those two, like how harmonious was that? And so it had broken open, and then we helped make it strong. And then seeing his parents and him, so the trifecta of the three, we had him think and work through that as well. So we also did a positive affirmation. So we asked him to say, I deserve to have a happy and healthy life. Poof, and it broken open. So we helped restore that kind of belief. So people who do positive intentions and those types of things, you can also help with that. So, I mean, I just describe it in a few minutes, and that's about how long it took. It was about 15 15 minutes tops. And we went back in, we had him do the eye chart again, and his vision improved by 2 lines. And what I didn't know necessarily at the beginning was that his parents actually were separated and he was actually put in foster care. So that whole trifecta had kind of exploded out. And then when he was in foster care, he ran away from his foster parents when he was 15. And he was 50 by the time I was working on him. And what I found was kind of fascinating was that his foster parents had moved near where he lived, and he started going over there and having dinner with his foster parents after getting all of this work done. And they've developed a relationship. He tries to go see him at least once a week. And so somebody who would, run away at 15 has now made, another connection with his parents that he hadn't had, for 35 years. So it's kind of, I don't know if that's necessarily related, but I found that the chain of events that had happened after the session was really, really quite fascinating. So let me see how much time I've got. 2 minutes. So I've also worked with people who, like I said, they haven't gone to the doctor. They had this, I worked on somebody who had this bump on their finger and they couldn't even straighten their finger, didn't want to go to the doctor, didn't want to figure out what it was, started shining the laser on it, and suddenly that started to melt away. I've had people call and be like, I've got to get my husband a laser because he keeps using my laser all the time. And he had been using it on his ganglion cyst on his wrist, and it started going away. So he wanted his own laser. And so that's what he got for Christmas. And so it's been really quite interesting to see how the spirits moved people to use it and where to use it. A friend of mine recently gave one of the lasers to a guy named Stan Cottrell, who's been running across America. He ran from Malibu to DC, and he picked up the laser in Kansas City, and he was reporting back that how much the laser has helped. If he has any aches or pains, he shines it, on his aches or pains, and it goes away. And this man is 78 years old, and running 15 miles in the morning and 15 miles at night, and has been using the laser to help him recover after his runs. So I was really excited to hear that he was using it, and not only that it was really helping him as well. A friend of mine who's had a hip replacement in 2009, she called me and she said, Kimberly, I've been using it on because the other hip started to hurt. It's, I think, the imbalance of the weight with all the metal in one hip, that her other hip was really actually bothering her. So she'd been using it on there less than a week. She's had this laser. And she said, Kimberly, I just ran for the first time in 12 years since her hip replacement. She was running. And I did ask her if anything was chasing her. And she said, no, she was doing it on her own. And she's 71 years old. So 71-year-old being able to voluntarily run again after using this laser is just, I'm just honored and thrilled that I've been able to help bring this out to the world. I travel a lot. I've been bounced all over the world, and I like to have things that I can just stick in my purse to be able to use not only for myself, but for others. And I wanted it to be affordable. I've been looking into different light systems, and a lot of them are, close to $1,000, if not over $1,000. And so I wanted to be able to create something that's, that people could afford. I grew up I'm here in Mississippi, which is one of the poorest states, and originally from South Dakota, which they kind of compete for the poorest state. And so I want to be able to offer, something that they can afford. And hopefully that if they don't think that this is witchcraft, then hopefully more and more people will be able to have access and be able to work with this. So I know I'm actually 2 minutes past time now, so I want to open it up for questions. If anybody has any, just unmute your mic and talk, and if not, I can keep going. So, my website is, well, I really want spectrochrometry to like get out there. And so I more people to know about this work that's over 100 years old. So I put spectrochrome in the name of the in the name of it on my website. So it's spectrochrome laser. But people, my friend who works with websites, she's like, people aren't going to know how to spell that. So I also have a website that's called buygreenlaser.com. So I'll write it in the chat box, but it's BUY and then greenlaser.com. I've been studying the biofield since 2009. Like I said, my background's in biomedical engineering and understanding that this energy field exists. The first technology that I worked with was medical thermal imaging, where you can see the heat that the body's radiating out. I was measuring people who do Qigong. You can see take baseline pictures of their hands, and then they say, okay, look, I'm ready. And then the heat in the palms of their hands, just goes up. I mean, within a few seconds, it was over a degree shift in her hands, which in the medical literature, that's considered a significant shift. But also people who've got inflammation in their knee and putting acupuncture needles in there and being able to see that heat dissipate out. So I've been using thermal imaging as a way to kind of monitor and see before and afters and during doing videoing people who are doing more energy-based treatment modalities. So the other website that I have is Biofieldlab.com. This is where I've been doing some research. When this whole pandemic started, we had some people. I put the camera on and I was taking images of myself, and then I had some friends and they use tuning forks to tune the teeth. So they were doing a distance session on me working on my teeth, and you could see all of these shifts and not only my sinuses, but also my lymph nodes, which was quite amazing. So it was kind of showing how distance healing, actually you can measure that with technology. I use on that website, it tells the camera that I use. Oh, I see another question. Can this work for a benign lump? Possibly. You can give it a go and see what happens. But we have had people, like I said, with, things that were abnormal. And, like I said, it's an adaptogen. So if this abnormality, is more overactive or underactive, then this laser can help bring the body back into more homeostasis, back into that neutral expression. So it's worth a go. So Biofield Lab, I also have, I use Lesher antennas, Lesher lines that helps measure high frequency fields. So you can measure a person's kind of atmosphere. You can see if it's like 4 inches away and then 10 inches away, you can see what different high frequencies are being emitted and how far out they're being emitted. I also use a technology called NU Vision, and it's kind of like a digital radionics. So it kind of listens to your radio station, your signal, and sees what songs are playing on your radio station. Is Lyme disease playing on your radio station? And then it can also transmit, certain frequencies to be able to help, either the inverse of the waveform to collapse it down or whatever. Using Royal Raymond Rife's frequencies to help, destroy and demolish, things that are in the body. If you're not familiar with Royal Raymond Rife, R-I-F-E, I'll write it in the chat. I mean, his work is absolutely amazing. And I think that his work right now would change the whole world. We could wipe out, he would filter through different frequencies with different bacteria and see which one would make it, would be its resonant frequency and make it shatter like glass. And so in his handwritten work that I saw at the World Research Foundation, it was like this bacteria, this frequency, this virus, this frequency, and it was pages and pages and pages worth of frequencies. So, I think that that's something that, if they could send out the kill frequency for all these variants or, the COVID, they could send it to everybody's cell phone and we could be done with this. Like, let's get over it. But evidently that doesn't make any money, does it? So it's a whole other story. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to preach. The lady who was speaking before talking about, we should have a high school where we can learn about these things. I mean, when I graduated, with my master's degree in biomedical engineering, and then I go to this conference, and it's called ISEAM, the International Society for the Study of Subtle Energy and Energy Medicine in Colorado. And I'm meeting Beverly Rubik and Bill Tiller and Elizabeth Rauscher and these Russell Targ, some amazing people. I'm like, how did I not even know that this existed? I was like, I can't believe that I spent this much money on my college education, and I don't even know that there's, frequency-based ways to be, and more physics-based ways of being able to, treat the body. So like I said, I went into physics and I started with tuning forks and worked my way to lasers, and now I use them both at the same time. So it's been a pretty wild adventure, and not knowing that we could do this work from a distance. I worked on somebody who's in the ICU in Texas, and they've been able to like wake up and roll over and all kinds of stuff. So it's been an amazing journey. I've also worked on people's eyes.
How do people contact?
And the thing that we say, don't shine the laser right into their eyes. So what I did was I took a picture of them and I shined it on the eyes in the picture. And this woman was trying to work with some of her cataracts that she has, and she was so blown away. She was in Canada, I was in Colorado, and she was so blown away by it. She was like, I want a laser.
Can you put it in your eyes or no?
I'm sorry?
Can you do it if your eyes are closed?
If your eyes, I've done it like that. And I've worked with there's an optometrist in in Connecticut, who bought 2 of them. And he's like, oh yeah, you could totally shine it into their eyes. But most of the time when you hear lasers, you're just like, it's like, don't shine it into your eyes. But with this, you are, it kind of diffuses the light. So it's not like a steady beam.
Right.
And so with it being, with your eyes being closed, you could close your eyes and shine it over the top. And when I do that, it doesn't.
I have to move you into room 22.
Okay.
And anybody that wants to follow you can go to room 22. Why don't you tell them now how they can contact you though?
Okay, so you can contact me through email. I'll put it in the chat, but it's basically my name, Kimberly.Schipke, spelled SCHIPKE @gmail.com. You can also go to the websites that I had put in the chat before, and you can contact through the website there. Those are 2 different ways. I'm also on Facebook through my name, Kimberly Schipke. I know it's spelled very German, all those consonants and a couple of vowels, but Schipke is how you pronounce that last name. And I'll even put my phone number in here in case any of you want to give me a call. It's a Mississippi number. So
great.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay, so thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you everybody for attending and listening, and I love you all, no matter what.
You're an angel. Thank you for coming very much.